My sister tapped our joint account and my parents backed her. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. She's your sister. Ethan, stop acting like a bank, my father said, standing in front of the china cabinet like he was giving a speech at church instead of watching me realize I couldn't pay my rent. That was the line everybody heard. What I heard was the part underneath it. We know she took it, and we expect you to swallow it. I was 30, working as a mechanic at a busy shop on the south side, the kind of place where lunch was usually 15 minutes and your back always hurt by Thursday. I wasn't broke, but I lived tight on purpose. I tracked every bill, every gallon of gas, every overtime hour. I had to. Nobody caught me when I fell. The money missing from our joint account wasn't extra. It was my rent for the first, my truck payment, and the emergency cushion I'd built over 2 years of Saturdays and skipped vacations. $8,420. 17 was in that account on Monday morning. By Wednesday night, it was $611. 04. I remember staring at my phone in my apartment kitchen while the old fridge hummed and my landlord's reminder text sat unread on the screen. Rent posts tomorrow. I called Kayla first because I thought there had to be a mistake. Hey, she answered, too cheerful. Can I call you back? No. Why are there 6 transfers out of the joint account? Silence. Then a laugh that sounded rehearsed. Oh my God, are you seriously doing this right now? Doing what exactly? Noticing my money was gone. By the time I got to my parents' house, Kayla was already there on the sofa, shoes off, holding a mug like she was the injured one. My mom, Denise, kept saying, let's not escalate. My dad, Mark, kept saying, family helps family. Kayla kept saying, I was going to put it back. I asked one question 3 times. When? Nobody answered at once. I wish I could say I snapped immediately, that I slammed statements on the table and walked out like a movie. I didn't. I stood there, exhausted, grease still under my nails from work, getting lectured about compassion by people who hadn't lost a dollar. Then my mother said the part that made it unforgivable. My mom looked me dead in the face and said, you make everything about money because you don't have children. Kayla exhaled like she'd been waiting for that line all night. My dad nodded once, slow and satisfied, like a judge approving a closing argument. For a second I just stared at them. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because it was so efficient. In one sentence, my missing money became my character flaw. The joint account had started as a temporary family system, my father's phrase. Last fall, my mom had surgery on her hip. Kayla promised she'd handle groceries and pharmacy runs. I handled bills because I actually opened mail and paid things on time. Mark said, open one shared account so everything is transparent. Transparent. That word still makes me laugh. Kayla and I were both signers. The idea was simple. We each put money in for mom's meds, occasional utility help for our parents, and emergency stuff while she recovered. Then my dad's slow quarter happened, and suddenly every conversation ended with, just float this until next month, Ethan. I covered more because I worked steady hours and couldn't stand hearing about shut-off notices. I knew Kayla was impulsive. I wasn't blind. 2 years earlier, she'd borrowed my card for groceries and used it for salon products too. She paid me back after 3 weeks and 3 fights. I brushed it off because mom cried and said, please don't turn this into a family war. That sentence ran my life more than I admitted. I kept the joint account open longer than I should have because I wanted receipts, not arguments. I thought shared access meant shared accountability. I also thought if I handled things calmly, they'd treat me like an adult instead of the dependable son they could always lean on. That Wednesday after work, I opened the banking app while heating leftover rice and chicken. I expected to see one weird charge, maybe 2. Instead, I saw a row of transfers labeled External Transfer, P2P Debit, and 1 ATM cash withdrawal, all posted within 48 hours. I told myself it was fraud. Then I noticed the timing. Every transaction happened after Kayla had called me asking, hey, you still at work? I ignored the warning signs until one transfer rewrote everything. The transfer that broke my denial posted on March 27th, 8:14 p.m. for $1,950. 00. The memo line said K-Pay link. Kayla was sitting at my kitchen table at 8:14 p.m. on March 27th, Eating takeout I paid for and asking if I could look at a noise her car was making. I remember because I'd just gotten home from a double shift and she'd shown up with noodles and tears, saying she needed brother time. She talked about a guy ghosting her, complained about her dad, asked if I thought she should go back to school. My phone had been on the charger in the bedroom. I wasn't even logged into the banking app. So when I saw that transaction, my chest went cold. I scrolled back. March 26th, $600 ATM withdrawal, 9:42 p.m. March 27th, $850 P2P debit, 11:03 a.m. March 28th, $2,100 external transfer, 7:11 a.m. Then the $1,950. Then another $1,400 early the next morning. I called the bank's customer service line and got the standard voice menu maze. By the time a human picked up, I was pacing between my couch and the sink. Because this is a joint account, the rep told me, either signer can authorize transfers. Even if the money is mine, if both names are on the account, funds are considered jointly accessible. That sentence made legal sense and emotional nonsense. I asked if it could still be fraud. She said I could file a dispute on unauthorized electronic transfers, but if the other signer admitted making them, it likely became a civil matter between account holders. Translation: the bank would not be my family therapist. I texted Kayla screenshots. Me, did you do these? Kayla: OMG, I'm in the shower. Me: did you take almost $8 grand? Kayla: don't text me like that. Me: answer me. Kayla: I said I'll call you. She didn't call. Instead, my mom texted, come by the house. Let's discuss this respectfully. Respectfully was always the word they used when they wanted me quiet. I drove there with the statements open on my phone and my hands shaking so hard I almost missed the turn. The next screen showed the transaction everyone later pretended to forget. The screen was the account activity details for the $2,100 external transfer. It showed the destination nickname, KM Savings, 2. Kayla Marie. Second savings account. When I walked into my parents' house, I put my phone on the dining table and turned it toward her. What's KM Savings, 2? I asked. Kayla didn't even look at the screen first. She looked at Mom. That told me more than any bank record. Ethan, lower your voice, Denise said, even though I wasn't yelling. I'm asking a question. Kayla sighed, tucked her hair behind her ear, and gave me that exhausted expression she used when she wanted to look like the grown-up. I moved some money to cover something. I told Mom. I was going to put it back after Friday. What's something? It was urgent. How much did you take total? It wasn't like that. My father came in from the den halfway through, still in loafers, smelling like aftershave and bourbon. He scanned the room once, saw Kayla's face, and immediately took position beside her chair. What's going on now? She drained the joint account, I said. I have rent due tomorrow. Kayla snapped. I did not drain it. I read the amounts out loud. Every transfer. Every withdrawal. My mom kept interrupting. Don't do this in front of your father. You're making her panic. She said she'll replace it. My father finally raised a hand like a traffic cop. Enough. How much does Ethan need for rent? I stared at him. That's not the point. It is tonight, he said. We can sort the rest later. No, I said. The point is she took money without asking. Kayla slammed her mug down. I said I was going to pay it back. Why are you acting like I robbed a stranger? Because you did it in pieces so I wouldn't notice. The room went very quiet after that. Then my dad said, careful, son. Accusing your sister of theft is a big word. I laughed once, sharp and ugly. What word should I use for taking money from an account that isn't yours? It is hers, my mom said. Not she shouldn't have. Not we'll fix this. Just ownership. Defense. Positioning. When I left, Kayla called after me. Don't be dramatic. At 11:37 p.m., my rent autopay failed and the notification hit while I sat in my truck outside their house. By midnight, I realized they were protecting her from more than shame. My landlord's message came at 7:02 the next morning. Autopay returned. Lease late fee applies after 5 p.m. Call me. I was already at work, standing in the break room with burnt coffee and a socket set in my hand because I'd walked in carrying it without thinking. The fluorescent lights made everything feel harsher. My chest hurt in that tight, embarrassing way stress does when you're trying to look normal around people who just want the blue sedan done by noon. I transferred what I could from my personal checking, but I was short. If I paid rent and the late fee, my truck payment would bounce Friday. If I covered the truck, my car insurance would draft into overdraft. I'd spent years building out of exactly this kind of corner, and one family emergency shoved me right back into it. Kayla texted at 9:14 a.m. I said I'd handle it. Stop spiraling. I called her from the alley behind the shop. Handle it how? Dad's figuring something out. Dad is not the account holder. She lowered her voice instantly, which meant she wasn't alone. You're being cruel. Cruel is watching my rent fail because you raided a joint account. I used some of it for the family. For what? Silence. Then my mother came on the line. I hadn't even heard the handoff. Ethan, enough. You're making this worse. How am I making this worse? Because your sister is under pressure and you're attacking her. Mom, tell me what the money was for. It's complicated. That was the second time in 12 hours they'd used a word as a wall. At lunch, I ate in my truck and pulled the statements again. Once I stopped looking at them like a betrayed brother and started looking at them like a mechanic tracing a leak, patterns appeared. The amounts weren't random. 2 withdrawals were almost exactly 24 hours apart. 3 transfers posted right after evening calls from Kayla. 1 ATM hit came from a neighborhood across town, near my parents' house, not Kayla's apartment. I paid rent by cashier's check before the deadline and swallowed the late fee. Then I checked the joint account again. Another $300 ATM withdrawal had posted. At 2:13, my phone lit up with another withdrawal alert. That alert was what finally burned off the last of my hesitation. I pulled over in a grocery store parking lot, opened the app, and saw the transaction pending. ATM cash, $300. 00, same branch corridor near my parents' neighborhood, time-stamped 11 minutes after my mother had called and left a voicemail saying, "Please don't do anything rash." I sat there listening to that voicemail 3 times. Don't do anything rash. Not we're fixing it. Not Kayla is sorry. Just preemptive damage control. That night, I stopped calling them and started documenting them. I downloaded every statement from the last 6 months as PDFs. I took screenshots of account activity with timestamps visible. I exported my call logs and highlighted every incoming call from Kayla, Mom, and Dad. Then I laid the timelines next to the transfers. It looked disgusting. Whenever Kayla had a crisis call, gas bill, tire blowout, Dad stressed, Mom needs meds, money moved within minutes or hours. Not always huge amounts. Sometimes $180. Sometimes $420. Small enough to disappear into life. The big pulls clustered around month end, when my deposits hit after payday. I texted Kayla one last neutral message. Me, I need a full list of what you transferred and why. Tonight. Kayla, I'm not doing this over text. Me, then send the money back. Kayla, you sound insane. My father called 30 seconds later. Son, don't make accusations you can't take back. I have statements. And she has access. So you agree she did it. A pause. Then, I'm saying family accounts aren't courtroom exhibits. That sentence hit me harder than yelling would have. Because it told me he already knew what she'd done and was working on the script. I reached out to Jordan after that. We'd grown up on the same street, and he worked in fraud operations at a regional credit union now. I didn't ask him to access anything. I asked what counted as proof if a joint owner emptied an account and lied. He answered in one line. Document everything and stop giving them time to align stories. Every transfer matched a call from my parents within 10 minutes. Jordan met me after work at a diner off the highway because I didn't want this conversation anywhere near my apartment. I brought a folder, my laptop, and the kind of anger that makes your hands too steady. He looked at the statements, then looked at me. You're not crazy. I know that, I said. He lifted an eyebrow. Do you? Fair point. Jordan wasn't handling my account, and he was careful about that. He explained process, not secrets. With a joint account, permission is broad. The bank usually won't call one signer when the other moves money. The key issue for you is less fraud and more documentation, notice, and what you want next, recovery, closure, leverage, all 3. I want my money back. Then stop arguing feelings with people who are using feelings to hide facts. He had me build a simple sheet. Date, time, amount, transaction type, memo, location, related call/text. We added screenshots of Kayla saying she'd put it back, and my parents telling me not to embarrass her. Then he pointed at one line I'd barely noticed because it was smaller than the others. March 18th, P2P debit, $475. 00, memo, minus prem. What's that? Jordan asked. I frowned. No idea. 2 lines later, March 19th, external transfer, $620. 00, memo, Mark Otto. My stomach dropped. Mark. My dad. Jordan didn't react. You sure? My father labels everything with his name, even group texts. He once sent me a Venmo for $50 labeled Mark Lunch Reimbursement. We kept going. There were more clues buried in memo fields that looked random until you knew my family's habits. D. Udall, K. Card Min, home tax. I called Kayla from the booth and put it on speaker. She answered on the 3rd ring. What did you use Mark Otto for? What? March 19th. 6:20. Mark Otto. I don't remember every transaction, Ethan. Jordan mouthed. Keep going. What about home tax? That was for the family. Which family? She hung up. Jordan circled one line item and asked why Kayla paid my father. The next day, Kayla showed up at my apartment without warning. Wearing sunglasses and carrying a bakery box like frosting was a legal defense. I didn't let her all the way in. She stood in the doorway and said, Can we please not do this like enemies? Then start talking like my sister. She pulled the sunglasses off. Her eyes were puffy, but Kayla could cry on command, so I stopped trusting that evidence years ago. I took money, she said. I already admitted that. No, you admitted some money. You took over $8,000. It wasn't all for me. I know. That threw her. She blinked, looked past me into the apartment, and shifted gears. Dad was behind on some things. Mom was freaking out. I was trying to keep everyone afloat. What things? It's private. I almost laughed. You emptied a joint account and privacy is your line? She shoved the bakery box at me like a peace offering. You always do this. You act like if you can itemize a problem, you own the truth. I want amounts, Kayla. She finally snapped. Fine. I paid a car payment, okay? And part of a property tax notice because Dad said if it posted online, he'd lose a board seat. They are happy? A board seat. There it was, my father's image, always worth more than my stability. And the rest. Her jaw clenched. I had some card debt. How much? Enough. Why were you using the joint account in March while sitting in my kitchen? For the first time, she looked genuinely rattled. What are you talking about? The $1,950 transfer at 8:14 p.m. You were with me. She stared at me for 2 full seconds, then realized what she'd just confirmed by not denying it. You checked timestamps. Did you link the account to your payment app? She went cold. No tears. No sister voice. You need to stop before you blow up this family. Not before you hurt me. Before I expose the system. After she left, I opened the app again and found a recurring authorization I hadn't noticed. Her payment wallet had been linked to the joint account for 5 months. The biggest withdrawal had happened while Kayla was sitting at my table. Once I knew her payment wallet was linked, the whole thing stopped looking like panic and started looking like planning. I pulled transaction history farther back and found smaller debits going to the same linked service, $90, $125, $240, stretching into January. Not enough to trigger a blow-up, just enough to normalize the behavior. She hadn't suddenly crossed a line. She'd been sanding it down for months. That night my parents invited me to dinner in a text that sounded almost sweet. Mom, let's eat and reset. Your father wants peace. Dad, bring your concerns. Leave the accusations. I didn't go. I stayed home and listened to old voicemails while building the timeline Jordan told me to build. Then I found one from my father on March 21st, 6 days before the big transfers. I'd missed it during work and never called back because he'd texted later about something else. Hey, son, his recorded voice said, easy, casual. If Kayla needs to move money from that family account for a few days, don't make it a thing. We're juggling timing over here. It'll settle. I sat at my kitchen table and replayed it until my ears rang. He knew before the largest withdrawals. He called it timing. He warned me not to make it a thing. That meant 2 things at once. He expected the money to move, and he expected me to shut up when I noticed. I texted my mother. Did you know Dad told Kayla to use the joint account? She responded in under a minute, which she only did when she was scared. Denise, don't twist his words. Me. I have the voicemail. Denise, Ethan, please. Your father was under pressure. Me. So was I? It was my rent. Denise, we were going to make you whole. That phrase, make you whole, made me furious because it sounded like they'd already reduced me to a ledger entry. No apology. No accountability. Just a future promise from people spending my money in the present. I sent the voicemail to Jordan and wrote one line under it. They knew. My father's voicemail erased the last excuse I kept making. I spent the next 24 hours arguing with myself harder than I'd argued with any of them. File a formal dispute. Freeze the account immediately. Close it and eat the loss. Threaten a police report. Actually file one. Every option had a cost. If I filed a report, Kayla would say I was vindictive. My parents would tell relatives I criminalized family help. If I did nothing, I'd be confirming the rule they'd lived by my whole life. Ethan can absorb it. I sat in my truck outside work before sunrise with my phone in my hand, staring at the bank's dispute form. The screen asked simple questions in clean boxes. Did you authorize this transaction? No. Do you know the person who made the transaction? Yes. That second question felt like a trap and a diagnosis. Kayla called while I was filling it out. I let it ring. Then my dad called. Then my mom. Then Kayla again. Group text next. Kayla, are you really trying to ruin me over money? Dad, think long-term, son. Mom, we can fix this privately. Kayla, I was helping them too. Dad, do not involve outsiders. Mom, please come to dinner tomorrow. Do not involve outsiders. That one lit me up. Because outsiders meant anyone who could name what happened without family mythology wrapped around it. Jordan called on his break. What do you want most? He asked. My money back. What do you want second? I want them to stop acting like I'm the problem. Then do this in order, he said. Lock down access. Preserve evidence. Offer a written repayment path. If they lie again, escalate. Courts and banks both care about chronology, not volume. Chronology, not volume. I wrote that down. By midnight, I had a packet, statements, screenshots, memos, voicemails, call logs, and a spreadsheet of every transaction I didn't authorize or didn't know about. I also drafted a repayment proposal with dates and minimum payments, because I still gave them one chance to act like adults. Then I opened the dispute form again and saved it as a draft. I drafted the report, then stared at the submit button all night. I told my parents I'd come to dinner, but I picked the conditions. Fine, my dad said over the phone, clipped and annoyed. Then we settle this tonight. Not at your table, I said. At the bank tomorrow. Conference room. Noon. A beat. Why? To close the joint account and review transactions. He laughed once. You're staging a trial? No. I'm ending access. If Kayla wants to explain the transfers, she can do it with statements in front of us. My mother tried the softer angle. That's humiliating. What was humiliating was my rent bouncing. Silence. Jordan couldn't attend as my account handler, obviously, but he helped me prep the packet and told me what to request in plain terms. Account closure paperwork, transfer history detail, linked external accounts list, and written confirmation of who remained authorized before closure. Don't improvise, he said. Bring copies. Let them react to documents, not speeches. I barely slept. By morning, I had everything in a folder with tabs like some version of myself I didn't recognize. At work, I messed up a brake parts order because my brain kept replaying every family dinner where Kayla cried and I apologized for upsetting her. At 11:40, I got to the branch and sat in my truck watching people walk in with normal problems. Car loans, deposit slips, lost debit cards. My problem walked in at 11:52 in heels and a cream sweater, smiling like she was late to brunch. Kayla tapped on my window. You're being extra. I stepped out and held the folder under my arm. Did you bring anything? What, receipts? I'm not you. Mom and Dad arrived together a minute later. My father looked furious in that polished way he always did in public. Jaw set, voice low, posture perfect. My mother had on lipstick and the face she used at funerals, all composure and blame. Inside the branch, we were led to a small conference room with a glass wall and a screen. I laid out 4 copies of the timeline. When Kayla walked in smiling, I knew she thought she'd already won. I started with dates, not feelings. March 26, 9:42 p.m. $600 cash withdrawal near Dad's neighborhood. March 27, 8:14 p.m. $1,950 transfer through Kayla's linked payment wallet while Kayla was physically at my apartment. March 28, 7:11 a.m. External transfer to KM Savings, 2. Kayla rolled her eyes. This is insane. Then correct the amounts. She didn't. My father leaned back and crossed his arms. Even if all of this is true, you're turning private family support into a spectacle. I slid his voicemail transcript across the table. Read line 3. He didn't touch it. My mother did. I watched the color change in her face before she set it down and said, "That recording is out of context." "Then give me the context," I said. Kayla jumped in. "Mom asked me to cover some bills because you were impossible to reach." I laughed, stunned. "I work days. You were in my apartment when one transfer happened." She turned to our parents. "See? This is what he does. He traps people." "No," I said, and opened the linked accounts printout I'd requested that morning. "This is what trapping looks like." I pointed to the authorization date for Kayla's payment wallet, November 9th, months before the emergency. Then I pointed to the repeated debits under $250, the card minimum memo, the auto payment memo, the property tax memo. "You didn't borrow once," I said. "You built access, tested limits, and used the account whenever you needed cash." Dad knew at least by March 21st. Mom knew before I confronted you. And all three of you asked me to stay quiet after my rent failed. My father finally snapped. "Watch your tone. Watch your facts." For 1 second, nobody spoke. Branch noise hummed outside the glass. A printer somewhere spat paper. My mother looked at Kayla like she was seeing a bill come due, not a daughter. Then Kayla tried the last move she had. She started crying and said, "I thought he'd understand." Then Jordan slid out the printout that made my mother go quiet. Jordan hadn't come in as a bank employee. He came in because I'd asked him to meet me afterward in the lobby and look over the closure paperwork before I signed anything. But when things blew up in the conference room and the branch manager stepped in to keep everyone calm, Jordan ended up standing by the door as a witness while I finished. The printout he slid across wasn't secret data. It was my repayment schedule, revised with exact totals, late fee, and the cashier's check fee I'd paid to save my lease, plus a note at the bottom. If unsigned by Friday 5 p.m., account incident report and civil claim filing proceed. My mother read it twice. "You would sue your sister?" Kayla whispered. "Oh my God." I answered the only way that felt honest. "I'm asking her to repay money she took." My father stood so fast his chair scraped. "This is extortion." Jordan spoke for the first time, calm and flat. "A documented repayment demand isn't extortion." Dad turned on him. "Who even are you?" "Someone not spending Ethan's money." The room went silent again. The account got closed that afternoon. New cards canceled. Online access severed. I transferred the remaining balance to my personal account and walked out with a folder so thick it felt like proof and grief combined. By evening, the family fallout started. My aunties didn't call me directly, but I heard through cousins that I was being harsh. My mom texted paragraphs about Grace. My father left a message saying I'd humiliated him in public. Kayla sent one line. "You could have just trusted me." I listened to that in my apartment, surrounded by highlighted statements, and laughed until I almost cried. Friday came. No signature. No payment. At 5:12 p.m., I emailed the demand letter Jordan helped me format and attach the timeline. At 5:17, Kayla called 13 times. At 5:31, my father called from an unknown number. At 6:04, my mother left a voicemail saying, "Please don't file anything tonight." I didn't respond that night. I ate takeout at my counter and slept deeper than I had in weeks. 3 days later, my father left a voicemail that changed the math. His voicemail started proud and ended tired. "Ethan, your sister can't meet those payments. If this goes through court, it hurts all of us. I'll cover part of it, but we do this my way. No report. No more public scenes. Call me." There it was again, his way. The same terms that got us here. Money offered as a muzzle. I called him back once, put it on speaker, and recorded my own notes while we talked. "My way is simple," I said. "Written repayment plan. Automatic transfers from accounts that are not mine. No shared accounts ever again. And you stop telling people I fabricated this." He exhaled hard. "You're punishing family. I'm preventing a repeat." Mom got on the line halfway through. "Can't you leave the legal language out of it? It sounds so cold." "Cold was my rent bouncing while you told me not to embarrass Kayla." Kayla texted while they were still talking. I'll pay you when I can. Stop controlling everything. I sent back the document and said, then sign this and define when. She didn't sign that day or the next. What finally moved her wasn't guilt, it was consequence. I filed in small claims for the amount not already repaid, attached the timeline, and served notice. Once there was a court date on paper, my father suddenly found urgency. Funny how accountability made cash appear. The settlement we reached was ugly but real. Lump sum from my father, monthly payments from Kayla, and written acknowledgement of the amount owed. No apology language. Of course not. But numbers transfer better than remorse. I started therapy the same month because I realized the theft wasn't the only thing wrecking my sleep. It was the role I'd been living in: responsible son, backup wallet, designated absorber. My therapist asked one question in our second session: what happens if love is no longer measured by what you tolerate? I thought boundaries would end the chaos, but one envelope remained. The envelope came from my mother 6 weeks later, tucked into my mailbox with no stamp because she'd dropped it off herself. Inside was a handwritten note and a cashier's check for the exact late fee I paid the day my rent bounced. Not the whole amount. I'd already recovered most of that through the settlement. Just the late fee, $28.50. Her note said, I know this doesn't fix what happened. I hope someday we can eat dinner without documents on the table. Love, Mom. I sat on my couch with that check in my hand for a long time. It was such a small amount compared to the money, the lies, the months of stress. But it was the first thing anyone in my family sent that wasn't framed as strategy. No timing issue. No family helps family. No, don't make this a thing. Just a number tied to a consequence she could finally admit existed. Things aren't magically healed. Kayla and I don't share finances, passwords, favors, or spontaneous emergencies. We text about holidays and keep it shallow. My father still talks like I overreacted, but now I end the call when he starts rewriting history. My mother tries harder, sometimes clumsily. I let her, with limits. I keep my money in accounts with one name on them, mine. If I help anyone now, it's in writing. Amount, date, repayment terms, no exceptions. People call that cold when they benefited from your confusion. What I learned is ugly and useful. Family enmeshment loves vague language. Support. Timing. Don't embarrass her. The moment you ask for dates, amounts, and signatures, people who were comfortable using you start calling you cruel. But peace got louder after I stopped funding the version of me they preferred.